What's up, dude? I don't know about you, but when I shell out over $100 for one single piece of meat, I feel a strong sense of responsibility to give it the respect it deserves. Today, I'm gonna show you my foolproof method so you can make a perfectly cooked, edge-to-edge, medium rare prime rib roast. Now let's go! To start, when you go to order or pick up your prime rib, you have two options. You can either get it on the bone or off the bone like this. Now, one of the pros of getting it with the bones is you can actually use these to make an incredible sauce for your prime rib if you want, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Another reason I like getting it with the bones is sometimes I just like to cut these, season them, roast them, and just eat them like a rib because that is just so tasty. If you want, you could also layer this with aromatics and herbs like garlic, rosemary, thyme, and then put the meat back on the bones and tie it all up so you have this little aromatic flavor bomb in there steaming away. Now, one of the cons of getting it with the bones is these bones have a serious amount of weight to them, which you are paying for when you buy your rib roast. Just out of curiosity here, let's take a look. Wow. 1.4 pounds of bones, right? And considering I paid $21 a pound for this prime rib, that is about $30, right? I think if you were to buy these ribs separately, it wouldn't cost that much, so that is something to keep in mind. For this cook, I'm actually just gonna roast the bones and just eat them as ribs. I'm not gonna make a sauce out of them. But if you do wanna learn that, at the end of this video, I will put a link to one where I make that sauce, and it is really incredible if you do wanna go all out. But personally, I save the sauce for special occasions like, you know, Thanksgiving, New Year's, etc. Another thing you might wanna do, which I'll do today, is trim this end. It just goes on and on and on, and I want to tie up the meat, and that is definitely going to get in the way. And don't worry, this is absolutely not going to waste. I'll render this down and cook it and use the beef fat to make Yorkshire pudding or roast potatoes. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a nicer shape so this cooks really evenly, because this thing is honestly about 95% fat. Now, with all that extra trim I just did, my prime rib is now down to 3.6 pounds, which is 2 pounds less than what I just purchased at the store. And that's something to really keep in mind about buying those bones on the rib. Now, personally, I've never asked a butcher to trim off this bottom part. That's kind of a bold move, but considering it's like 90% fat, I think it's worth the risk of asking, right? If you see a lot of that on your prime rib, maybe ask them to trim it off, because you're paying for it. But that doesn't matter, we're still gonna enjoy it. Now, the next thing I like to do is just do some little scores on the top of the beef, like this. You don't wanna go in too far, and this is really gonna help with the next step, which is getting the seasoning on, as well as letting it get really crispy with this awesome texture on top during the last stage of this process. So just take your time, make these nice little squares on top. Of course, you don't have to do this, but I do like the effect that it gives me. And I just like scoring things. Now, the first thing I like to do is douse it with Worcestershire sauce, as the Brits would say. And I don't know if you knew this, but this is made actually out of anchovies, amongst other things. I call it like liquid salt, right? No, your liquid salts, like soy sauce is a liquid salt. I would consider this a liquid salt. And it just adds this umami-rich flavor punch. And it's also gonna help with the next step, which is to have some more seasoning come on. But we're just gonna really douse this all the way around and just rub it in. Don't be shy, don't be shy. My gosh, it just smells so good. Something about Worcestershire sauce and beef together is just a beautiful combo. Our next layer of seasoning is called rosemary salt, and this one you need to try. The recipe for this will be down in the description underneath the video, and all you need to do is strip some rosemary leaves off the stem and pluck some sage leaves from the stem as well. Then just add that to a food processor along with some peeled garlic and some lemon zest. Then just dump in your salt and blend for 1 minute, and boom, you've got rosemary salt. It is an incredible seasoning. You're gonna love having it on hand. Same deal here, my friends. Just really take your time. Literally just season this rib all the way around. Stand it how you need to stand it. It's a big piece of meat, right? So you can have a lot of seasoning on the outside and it really won't get too salty. Wow, that looks beautiful. And last but not least, Sergeant Gilbert reporting for duty. That's just black pepper. And same like I did with the rosemary and the Worcestershire sauce, I'm really gonna take my time and get all the way around, making sure to dip up those edges and pepper it really nicely. Now, another thing that never really hurts to do is to tie it up, right? I'm just putting down some butcher's twine right here. Just set our little rib roast in here. Spin that around a few times right here. That'll help lock it in when you do this. And then simply just tie a knot. And what we're doing here is just making it more compact, which is essentially just making the whole rib roast one mass, meaning it's gonna cook evenly. If you don't do this, and that's also an option for you, you might have the end that's a little bit more medium and then the inside more medium rare, which can actually sometimes be a good option if there's someone in your family that likes their meat a little bit more done. But as we're all medium rare folks here, I'm just gonna tie it up a little bit. Now there's your rib roast. The only thing you need to do now is wait, because by leaving this in the fridge for about 24 hours uncovered before roasting, it is only gonna be a whole lot better as it dry brines in there, and that seasoning is allowed to penetrate further into the meat, as well as letting it dry out more on the outside, which is gonna give us an unbelievable, beautiful, crispy edge, which we all know and love. So I will see you tomorrow. Our rib roast has been dry brining for 24 hours now. It's time to get this thing in the oven. And a probe thermometer is gonna be your best friend here. Just insert it right into the center of the roast and set the target temp to 105 Fahrenheit. And for my friends across the pond, that's 40 Celsius. You wanna set your oven temp to 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 93 degrees Celsius, so nice and low and slow. Now I can't just show you how to make prime rib without also showing you how to make some incredible things to go with it. We're starting with melted onion. And let me tell you something, a lot of people might see this and think it's weird. Please, for the love of God, as a professional chef for 20 years, try these. Try them once and you will never look back. This recipe actually comes from Thomas Keller, who's a 3 Michelin star chef. So for what that's worth, and it's worth a lot, make them. Here we go. White onions are the onions you want to use for this because they have the most moisture content, and that will make sense in a second. I'm just taking off a little from the bottom and the top, and then what we're gonna do, half peel. I'm gonna make a little V cut right here just to get that root out, like so. And then we're gonna julienne, just like this. Down, finish the rest, just like so, and repeat with the rest of your onions. Next, all you need to do is get them in the pot you're gonna be cooking them in. Oh God, ooh! Oh, they're getting to me. Make sure you use a sharp knife when you're cutting onions. That will help with the tears, but they're still getting to me. My knife is sharp. Now, salt going in. And what may seem like a lot of salt, trust me, these are supposed to be too salty before they get the butter, and the butter then balances it out. And so what we're doing now is just sort of mashing these a little bit, just scrunching them up in my hands. And what this is gonna start to do is pull all that moisture out of the onions, which is then what we're gonna cook the onions in. It's like onions stewing in its own juices. Ooh, ooh, they got me good. And as you mix these for a couple minutes, you'll start to feel all that liquid begin to release from the onions. Don't make these, you guys. It's not worth it. It's always worth it. I can already feel that water starting to leach out. Now, once you've scrunched for a minute or so, just let these sit and let that water begin to come out. Oh my God. Now, as you can see, these onions have really broken down, and there's a little bit of liquid now sitting at the bottom of the pot. We're gonna turn the heat on just a touch over low, and then we're gonna slowly let these onions simmer away in their own juice. Now, if it runs out of liquid in the bottom of the pot, you need to add a little bit of water, like a quarter cup at a time, which I usually do, and that totally depends on how juicy your onions are. Now, every 5 minutes or so, all I want to do to my onions is just give them a quick little mix and just make sure that there's enough liquid there in the bottom. Again, some onions are packed with moisture, some aren't. These ones weren't as juicy, but that's fine. Just add a couple tablespoons of water at a time and maintain that little bit of liquid as you see here on the bottom of the pot. And we're just slowly letting these things stew. So I just came and stirred these onions every 5 to 10 minutes, and now they've been stewing for a full hour. And as you can see, there's just a little bit of liquid left over in the bottom here. At this point now, we're gonna add a lot of butter, and it is a lot of butter. It may seem crazy to you, but that's how you make this dish. Not for the faint of heart. This is definitely a celebration style recipe. So I'm gonna start adding in these cubes of cold unsalted butter, and the heat is still just on very low. And what you want to do is work in a few cubes at a time, just like so. And once they've almost disappeared into the onions, just add more. If you've ever made a beer monte, which is a butter emulsion sauce, this is exactly how you do it, except there's just a whole bunch of onions in here as well. Now it really starts coming together. You can just see this sort of sauciness being formed. That water is emulsifying with the onions. This is so good. I really hope one of you will make these and get back to me in the comments. You gotta experience this. Everybody needs to try these once. More butter going in. I'm gonna do literally, this is crazy, but 6 to 8 ounces of butter. That's how you make them. Probably about 6 ounces is what I'll do. It's crazy. Once all the butter's worked in, I'm just gonna shut off the heat and then taste your creation. It's so stupidly rich and delicious. Oh my God, that's gonna be insane with the prime rib. Those are done right now. Keep them somewhere warm and get ready to serve. The next thing we're gonna make that goes so well with prime rib is just a really great horseradish sauce, and it is surprisingly easy to make. Here's how you do it. Just add mayonnaise to a bowl, followed by sour cream or crème fraiche, prepared horseradish, lemon juice, white wine vinegar, Worcestershire sauce, and I like adding fresh chives as well. All we need to do is give this a really good mix. I'll also add a little touch of salt. Don't need much though, as the Worcestershire sauce has of salt, and that's your horseradish sauce all done. As you can see here, it's just perfectly thick. And if you want, you can absolutely use fresh horseradish here. I use that a lot. The only downside to that is if you buy one from the store, sometimes they're really old and they've lost a lot of that spice, so it can be hard to judge just how much horseradish to add. The prepared horseradish just always seems to have the same level as spice. I always buy the ones that say extra hot, and it works perfectly every time. Give it a final taste for seasoning. Absolutely spot on perfect. Tasting this has me so excited for the prime rib. So after just 2 hours and 9 minutes, our beef has hit 104 internal. Now obviously at this point it's not done, right? It's missing that crispy, crackly, brown, crunchy, just flavor-packed exterior that is my favorite part of a prime rib. The reason I started this in a really low oven is so I get this edge-to-edge medium rare perfection. It almost looks like sous vide meat by the time it's done. But now that that's been achieved, we need to crank up the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit and finish this off. And I'll tell you what, I would not pull this at 130, I would not pull this at 128, I would not pull it at 125, I would pull it at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Because it's such a big piece of meat, it's gonna carry over, cook a lot more, so I would definitely aim for 120. And in it goes. And there we go, it just hit 120 internal, and I'll tell you what, it got crunchy and brown and crisply and crackly so fast, it looks really, really good. All that's left to do now is practice a little bit of patience, because you gotta let it rest. Sometimes I'll cover it in a little tin foil tent, but I don't think it's really necessary. I'm just gonna let it sit here for about 25 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes. It would be a shame to under rest this, cut into it, and have all those juices run out. I mean, you spend a lot of time and money on it, so just let it rest. It's rested now for 25, 30 minutes. I'm gonna take off the butcher's twine. And just for your information, I pulled it at 120. It came up all the way to 135, 136. So just something to keep in mind, guys, if you're making this at home. You might even try pulling it like 115. I'm gonna slice the whole thing directly in half to start. And there we are. Oh, look at it. Look at it. It's glorious. Here we go. The last thing I'm gonna put on is this little bit of dripping that comes out in the bottom of the sheet pan that the ribeye roasted in. It's not enough to make a full sauce, but it's so good. It's just like the natural sauce that comes from the ribeye.
Hell yeah.
I mean, personally, I'm getting like straight up into this cap. Out of respect for the beef, this looks like it's fit for a king. Wow. Alone, amazing. What are you gonna try first, Marcus? Start with horsey. Always so good with horseradish sauce. Whoa, melted onions? Oh my God.
This is sick.
Oh, dude, try it with the onions. Oh, that's crazy. It goes hard, dude. It goes hard.
I gotta do one more. I'm going. Oh my God. It's just, oh my God. It's straight buttery goodness. You got something special coming up? Make this and blow everyone's mind.
Blow their minds, man. You can do it. Easy as that. I recommend you pull it at 115, maybe even 110. Really, just do that. It carries up so much. And that's all. That's all I got for you, man.
Make it.
Make it. Make the prime rib and melted onions and get back to us in the comments. I'm super curious what you think of that combo. You can also check the description down below for links to my Master in the Making ebook that has 55 of my personal favorite recipes, as well as a mega list of tools and equipment that I love to use here in this kitchen. And if you want to keep binging today, here are 2 more beefy recipes that I know you are gonna love. Until next time, you know I love you and I'm out.